What's up, folks at home? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna hit that clear water. We're gonna go underwater. We're gonna talk all about the Senko. We're gonna throw a wacky rig. We're gonna throw a Texas rig. We're gonna talk about things that I do that make that bait work for you 24/7, 365. And trick stick fishing. Caden, he'll love this video because he throws the Senko a ton. So let's head underwater. Let's talk about the baits. Let's see what we do. Hey, we'll see you there. Alright guys, welcome underwater. First up here we have the elusive 7-inch Yum Dinger. This bait, they don't really make them anymore. If you find them, get them. What we're talking about with any kind of stick bait here is subtle action and secondary action. We're going to slow it down here on this dinger, and you can see it falls fast and the ends kind of vibrate. But the most important thing to consider when fishing a wacky style stick bait is water temperature and the action you want it to have. You see here the heavy dinger. This is good in deeper water where the bait has to fall a long way. It also has a subtle action on the end there. You get that little wiggle as it's falling. I love this on deeper docks. I'm not gonna fish it shallow, it falls too quickly. Unless the fish are on the bottom and really want it. Up next we have pretty much the bait that I fish all the time if I'm gonna fish a stick worm, the 5-inch Yum Dinger. And I really feel like the Yum Dinger has a ton of secondary action. I really like the way the ends wiggle there on the fall. It falls pretty horizontally every time. It doesn't do a lot of gliding. That's good for certain things. But if I want a bait to fall in a hole straight down, the Yum Dinger is going to get the call. Most of the time, if I'm skipping docks or fishing open edges, things like that, I'm going to throw the Yum Dinger. Here, slowed down, you can really see that accentuated action on the fall. It falls really slow. It's a good shallow water bait. It does a fantastic job for me. I really enjoy the Yum Dinger. You can see it here slowed down again. It's got that nice subtle action. The secondary action of that side-to-side kick as it's falling can be a real game changer sometimes. And it's just something that makes this bait a little bit different than other baits in the same category. Here you have the 5-inch Yamamoto Senko, a bait that needs no introduction. If you've fished for bass before, you've thrown a Senko. Now, the thing that makes the Senko different, it's heavier. It's a salt-filled bait. It's got a little bit more pronounced wiggle action on the fall. We're going to slow it down here, and you'll see it. But it really has that side-to-side rocking action that is what makes a Senko get bit. Now, in a little bit deeper water, the Senko is going to perform. In shallower water, the Yum Dinger is going to get bit better. It's a slower fall. The Senko, though, is a great bait for skipping. It's a great bait for fishing around cover. Wacky worms, you can fish anywhere, right? I rig all of my wacky rigs with a wacky keeper and a owner wacky hook. Just the way that I like to rig them. It prolongs the life of the worm and it helps it out a great deal. So there's that Senko with the secondary action. Up next here you have a Bruiser Baits 5-inch stick worm. And I really like this because it is a subtle gliding action. This is a great cold water bait. I really like this bait when the fish are in a really neutral mood. It has a very flat fall and it has almost no secondary action. So it's a do-nothing bait. But as you know, if you've fished cold water for any stretch of time, sometimes do-nothing baits do an excellent job, right? This bait literally has very pronounced and very little action, right? It tends to glide and hover, and it does a great job sitting on the bottom. Here it is in a different color. You can see it's got that slow, nice glide. I really enjoy this bait when the water is cooler, but I need a finesse presentation that does not provoke a huge amount of motion in the water. Sometimes it will get you bit better, right? Slow fall, very subtle action, does a great job and being available for fish. It does good against pressured fish. You've seen the Senko who don't want that secondary action. If I'm fishing a wacky rig, it tends to be I'm fishing either pressured fish or I'm fishing for fish that have seen everything under the sun. Now we're gonna go through them Texas rigged. Here's that 7-inch Yum Dinger. Get these baits if you ever see them. They stopped making them, I feel like. I can't find them anywhere. But I really like to throw a Texas rigged 7-inch dinger around docks because it will backslide and it will definitely glide on the fall, and it does a good job of giving that tail wiggle secondary action as it is falling through the water. You can throw this bait anywhere, right? If we're around shallow cover and I want a bait to backslide, this is the bait that I'm throwing. This is totally unweighted on a number 4 Gami hook. Literally, you can see that falling action, that tail action. You can twitch this bait like a fluke, but what it's going to do is it falls into the cover. It'll slide into the cover and meet the fish where they're at. It's a great way to throw it, and it's got way less of that secondary, puff motion on the bottom. It comes through there very quietly and does a good job for me of mimicking a very wary bait fish or a wary worm or a leech or something like that. It's, once again, if you're fishing a Texas rigged or a wacky rigged worm weightless, you are looking for subtle motion. You're looking for very little secondary motion. You're looking for a do-nothing bait. That 7-inch dinger also casts very well. You can throw this thing a country mile unweighted, and it does a fantastic job at giving that subtle action. It's the bait that I'm going to pick up 9 times out of 10 just because it's a bigger bait, gives you a bigger bite most of the time, but it also does a fantastic job at being very subtle and getting bites from all kinds of fish. 7-inch Yum Dinger, love it. And here we have the Bruiser baits, stickworm. Does a good job at being very subtle, having a very reduced amount of action, but when the water's colder, this bait's going to get the call. That gliding action down to the bottom looks like a dying shad, a dying animal of some kind. Bass really enjoy that. It generates bites. Plus the color schemes on these, the flake, look really good. I like to fish Senko type worms on that number 4 Gami hook because it is not a meaty hook, but it literally allows the bait to have the action that was intended. We really like that Bruiser bait, that gliding action in the cooler water. So in your later fall, your earlier spring, if you're fishing a stickworm, that one's gonna get the call. Whereas your Senko and your Yum Dinger are gonna get the call in warmer water, right? With a more pronounced action. It's kind of something that a lot of guys just don't think of. Most people pick up a stickworm having not viewed them underwater and kind of go to town, and they wonder why they don't get as many bites, or they get smaller bites or lesser bites. And it comes down to how much secondary action that bait has. Watching baits underwater, watching how fish react to them has really changed my perspective on different baits, and it's kind of sent me down a rabbit hole. Here is that Yum Dinger, right? And as you can see, it has a more pronounced tail action than any of the other baits. It's got a nice wiggle on it. It does a good job for me in shallow water because of its slow rate of fall. Anything Texas rigged is going to fall faster than a wacky rig just because there's less water resistance and they tend to glide more on that Texas rig. You're going to come through cover better, but you're not going to get as much action. Once again, though, this is dictated by the situation that you are fishing and not necessarily anything else besides water clarity and temperature. Guys, I hope you learned something on that underwater video. Watching things in slow motion, especially on the fall, the different kind of baits we throw in different situations, there's a whole lot more to worm fishing than just chucking it out there, letting it sink and reeling it in. You can do a lot. You can go down as many rabbit holes as you want to, but we always find it good to watch those baits underwater to see what works in situations and what doesn't. We hope you learned something from the channel today, guys. Hit the links in our bio. Go support Six Gill Fishing. Go support us at all of the things that we have listed there. Woo Tungsten, Six Gill, Sportsman's Outfitters. Go do that for us. Give us a like, give us a subscribe in the comment section. Let us know what you want to see in the future. We'll see you out there, guys, next time.